Hello, this video is going to go over how to make a very simple budget on Google Sheets. I chose Google Sheets because it has the least barrier to entry. It's free with any Google account you make. If you have Excel or numbers for Apple products, same concept, almost exact same instructions actually. But today we're going to go over Google Sheets. So let's start a new project here. First thing I like to do is to name it in case I get kicked out. I can always find it again and go right back into it. Okay, so again, this is a very simplified budget for people who want to make a custom budget. Most of these softwares come with pre-built templates for monthly or annual budgets, which are perfectly fine to use, but this is just for those who want to make one themselves or customize it or get started, just getting familiar with Excel in general. So let's start with the core elements of a budget, which is expenses. We'll do a monthly and a yearly cost. Let's do, and then all throughout, again, because I like to show whenever I can some tips and tricks about how to use Excel for those who aren't as familiar. I'll introduce them here and there. Here's the first one. If you want to adjust the width or height of these cells and columns, rows and columns, you gotta do it manually by clicking on the edge of each cell. Or if you want to uniformly change them, just click on one by clicking on either the letter. If you click on the letters or the numbers, it'll highlight all the way to infinity. But click on the letter, hold shift, keep holding shift, and click on the rest of the columns that you want to affect. And then from there, you can actually adjust them all uniformly at the same time. Saves you time of trying to get it exactly lined up to the same size if that's what you want. But let's do this. Let's make notes and expenses a little longer because they include full writings. Notes, by the way, you can right click on a cell and insert a note or a comment. I like to put it out as its own column if I have the space to do it, so that I can have it on the face of the sheet instead of having to click in or hover over a cell to see a note. A lot of this is going to be aesthetic preference on my end, and you don't have to do it the way I do, but I find that it helps kind of visually keep track. Okay, so these are bolded. Let's add a little bit of color in the background here. That's ugly. Let's do, that's fine. There you go. So these are core elements. These are where we're going to list all our expenses. Actually, let's do that now, so it starts looking like a budget. Again, just if you click on the letters or the numbers, it'll highlight that whole cell and run that effect on it. So let's do that. Also, I like to pre-program the formatting. So I'll select these two because these deal with dollar amounts. So if you can highlight those, format numbers, and then you can see all these other options here, but I like to do currency. If you do that, anytime you put numbers in here, it'll automatically format it to 2 decimal places and then a comma after the 3 numbers here, and then put a $sign up front. So I like to do that ahead of time so that whenever I input the numbers, it kind of just generates it for me. All right, let's do this real quick. Housing. Let's do car payments. This is in no way a comprehensive list. This is kind of just, just show the process. Food, let's do groceries and restaurants, because I consider them different. Restaurants are more of a splurge spend. Subscriptions, because we have two. Let's see, let's do giving, allowance, savings, very typical things, utilities. So let's stop there. I think that's enough. Once I do create my comprehensive list, I give a little extra few blank cells just in case I need to add more. And then I put, that's where I put the budget and then remaining. So this is how much after taxes, 401ks, social security, whatever, top of line stuff, whatever I've left to put into these other expenses that I list, is amount that I put here. So we'll do that. Let's just tighten this up. This is our workspace here, so let's put a border around it, a thick border. There we go. So it's all in one. Okay. So let's fill this out a little bit. Well, you know what? Let's do this first. Budget. Let's say we're working with a $40,000 budget. I did the yearly instead of the monthly first because I figured most people know their yearly rather than their monthly. Here is the first math equation. So for those who don't know, Excel and Excel type of programs, they have built-in formula generators. They essentially do the math that you tell it to do. So here's a simple one. So we have the yearly cost. We want to do the monthly. So instead of manually dividing it and putting it in, we want to make an equation to show the monthly, because if you put an equation based on whatever this number is, whenever you go and change this number because of a raise or a new job, new salary, when you change this number, it'll change all the math in this number and it'll give you the right monthly cost instead of having to go back in and change your income, annual income every time. So let me show you. To start an equation, you have to start with the equal. All equations start with equal. If you don't, then it won't recognize that you're trying to do a math problem. So equal, and this part's pretty intuitive. So it equals this cell's, I don't know what happened there, but okay, equals this cell's value. That's C17, C17. So whatever number you put in here is what this represents, C17. So that divided by 12 months in a year. So that makes sense. The value of this cell, this monthly cost or monthly budget number cell, is going to equal this annual budget number value divided by 12 for 12 months. Enter. There you go. Sorry about that. I have a problem. Let's bold these two while we're at it. Okay, so that's right, 33.33. It just worked out that way. That's the monthly budget. So again, if you change this number, it'll follow and correct in here. Now, same concept, but let's fill this out. 1,500, let's see, 400, 100, gross 400. I'm just kind of making these up as I go. Giving 300, let's be generous, 200, 200, 100, simple numbers. Okay, so here are the costs for all of the expenses. Now, this part here, remaining, I put in because I want to have a live tracker of where I am relative to my budget. So another equation here, this is gonna be introduce another element. So again, all equations start with equals, and then we're gonna work with this. So essentially what we want here is this number, budgeted number, minus the total of all of these expenses. So equals this value, B17, makes sense, minus, and here's a new element, sum. You'll just have to remember that, but it's pretty intuitive. Sum, parentheses, open and close. This is the full formula, or the full element here. Sum, and everything in the parentheses, inside the parentheses, is what you're summing, adding up. So in this case, we'll drag everything, including these blank ones, because we could always add later, and we don't want to edit the math. We just, if it's blank, it's blank. It doesn't account for anything. But if we add more stuff, it'll include it. So sum of all of these, and essentially the formula is the first cell colon the last cell, and that'll tell it everything in between. Hit enter. We're over budget by 266. Also, you don't have to drag and select all of these. You can actually, if you'd like, as an example, click on one, hold down Command or Control if you have an Apple or a PC, and just select specific cells to add up, and it'll only add up these cells that are highlighted, and it'll skip the rest. But in our case, we will do the summation of all of these expenses. Now, again, the very reason why I like to put this remainder part here is because now I see I'm over budget. So we got to make some changes. Okay, eat out a little less. Be a little less giving. By the way, giving, I think it's a healthy way to view money and budgeting and finances in general. If you budget for giving, pouring outside of yourself or your family, because I think that that's good for the soul. If you give to your church or organization, 10% is the understanding, but I'd say give until it hurts. At least that's what my church tells us. Give until you feel it, which is a good metric, I think. But regardless, I think it's good for anybody to be in the practice of giving rather than just spending on self. Just my 2 cents. Let's see, $66 over. Let's lower this a little bit. Lower. And we'll make I should have made this earlier. Emergency. We'll just put our $16. So again, this budget does not make sense. It's not a budget I recommend for anybody, because I'm just putting in random-ish numbers. But yours will be more fleshed out and more thoughtful. This is just how to do it. Skill training. Okay. Yearly cost, same thing. You don't want to manually have to multiply by 12. So what you do is equals this. These days, these software, the programs are very smart, so it assumes what you're trying to do. I would just manually do it for the first few times, because it actually been wrong on occasion. So just, again, it assumes what you want to do for the rest of them. Just be in the habit of manually doing it at first, so you know how to do it. And then you can kind of rely on the auto-generated stuff if you can verify it yourself confidently. So you can actually copy the equation and then paste it, and then it'll know to not refer to the original cell you're referring to here, but it'll refer to the relative cell. So it's smart in that way as well. You can also highlight and then paste, and it'll do the same thing. See here, if you're in the future, you add an expense. Oops, I think I dragged something. So if you add an expense in the future, it'll do the math for you as well. Okay, and then copy this to, what am I doing? Copy this over. There you go. This is probably rounding left over, the 4 cents. There you go. So you're gonna your yearly and your annual or your monthly, and then again you can keep track of where you are with this line remainder. And then notes, again, I like to keep that because I can say, hey, reminder to myself, save up to $1,000, then put in savings. So, save up to $1,000 in emergency and put into savings. Now I know how to do that. Again, this was just a tutorial on how to make a very simple, customized budget for yourself, just to get started on your financial journey. hopefully the skills learned today can transfer into being able to make other organizational lists in the future. And I hope this was kind of useful. Thank you.